Today on Life's Potluck Buffet, I'm going to ask the cards about icebreakers. Those conversation starting, meeting starting questions, when you go around and everybody answers a question, that are so important to our daily lives. And I think the cards today are going to provide for us a really fun icebreaker that you can use in your next meeting, in your next conversation. And so stick around for today's episode, an ice-breaking episode of Life's Potluck Buffet. I'm John Paulus. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, so I have the 55 cards. I have the very special, dedicated, magical pack of Life's Potluck Buffet cards that I draw from every day for our show. So what I'm going to do is shuffle them in the way that I usually shuffle them. I'm going to turn them around. I should mention, I always have the backs of the cards facing to the left when I shuffle them. I don't know if that makes a difference, but if you're out there shuffling your Life's Potluck Buffet deck, what I do is I have the cards in my right hand, then, I hold the edges with my left hand and pull up stuff from the front and back, cards from the front and back, rearrange them in front, and I do that 3 times. Just almost dropped them. And after that, what I do is I shuffle them in the traditional way. Oh, by the way, I call that a casual shuffle. I'm trying to get that to catch on when you just kind of rearrange cards with one hand and kind of, flip them from the front and back to the beginning. So I am now shuffling in the traditional way that you'd probably think of when you think of shuffling. All right. I always do that away from the microphone to avoid any red levels that we reach, because the sound starts to sound funny on YouTube and also just in general when you hit the red. All right. Now I look for a gap. Oh, I see one. Well, there are 2. No, I want to get this card right here. I always look for a gap because I feel like that's where the cards are telling me to go. I feel like this card right here is the one they want me to pull. Okay, so the question is, what's a good icebreaker? And let's see what prompt today from Life's Potluck Buffet pops up and lets us know the answer. Oh, interesting. It's card number 8. This is a really kind of good icebreaker here. Like it's a little bit deep, but it's a good one. Card number 8 is, others always need something from you. Get clarity on what you do for others and what others need from you, then align that need with what you need for yourself. What's something you do that others always ask for? That is a really interesting one. That may take a second to think about, and you might want to phrase it in a different way, but I think that is a really good icebreaker question. What's something you do that others always ask you for? Now, I've answered this question for myself on a couple of videos, at least a couple of videos, because it's something I think about a lot. And this is a good thing to think about whenever you're thinking about, what's the next thing in my life? What's the next opportunity? What's the next job? What's the next career move? Thinking about what others need from you is a really good way to get at places to explore. Obviously, the other option is to think about what you need for yourself, and then having these two kind of gradually come together is how everything works in life. Right? We're constantly kind of triangulating what we need for ourselves and what others need from us to get to a point where when they come together, that's when we've found something new that we need to do, whether it's a job or volunteering or whether it's a hobby, although hobbies are largely for ourselves, as we know from the episode Passions Are for Hobbies. So that's another thing to think about when you answer this question. For example, what's something that others always ask you for? People frequently, in one of the episodes I talked about how people ask me for, to like take care of their plants or to, um, you know, help them out in that regard, because they know I like growing plants and I have plants, and when they come over the house they see, no, they're doing pretty well, so he must know what he's doing. And so, neighbors ask me to take care of their plants when they go away for sure. And that's something that, and this is a good example of something that others need from me that is not really, I don't really regard it, at this point in my life, as a professional thing. It's not the kind of thing where at this point I'm going to open up a nursery or do a garden business or something like that. And I think the reason is that my interactions with plants are solely for self-care. And that's where we got into that idea of passions are for hobbies, where like if we focus on the things that we're really passionate about, that we're really like, those are things that we do for ourselves. And if you make a buck doing that, as the card says, the card about passions are for hobbies, if you make a buck doing that, that's cool. That's great. And I would always encourage people to, just see where things go if they want to. But for me, and I know for a lot of people out there, that idea of passion is often gets linked to things that are paid jobs and to our rhetoric and the way we talk about our paid jobs. And I think that that's something that we kind of do at our peril, linking that self-care item of what's a passion for you to something that is someone else is paying for, muddies the water in such a way that it stops becoming self-care. That's why I always warn against kind of looking for passions in order to look for paid work, because that passion part is for us, because that's what our passions are for us. It's feelings that we have, and it does everything for us, and it does things for others, but in the end it's an item of self-care, which I like to make sure, and I'm very conscious about this, I like to make sure that self-care item is not muddied by other things. For me, as soon as it starts becoming like a money-making pursuit, that self-care part of it gets muddied. I think using the word muddied a lot, that's what it feels. It starts to get confused, because it's no longer something that I could say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that because, that doesn't work for me. All of a sudden you get into the business mode of, okay, I'll do that because it's business, right? So I'll do this thing for money. And then it stops becoming for you. It starts becoming for others. And so that's why I'm always kind of trying to steer people away from thinking about passions as ways to find your next job, or think about paid work, or business even. Because as soon as you start doing it as a business, it becomes something that other people are paying for. And so it starts to become out of your control to that extent, that other people are the ones paying for it. Whereas when you're doing it as a hobby, you're the one paying for it. We pay lots of money to do our hobbies, because that's our way of basically paying ourselves. Because we know that we want to do it and it's good for us, and it is good for us. So keep that in mind. And if you're thinking about the next steps, a good replacement for the this kind of passion pursuit idea is thinking about what others need, like this card is saying, from you, and combining that with what is compelling for you. And I use the word compel and compulsion because that to me is where, and sometimes I think people describe that as passion and confuse that with passion. And so that's another kind of factor that muddies the water, to use that analogy again. But the compulsion means something that you have to do. You need to do. You can't help but do it. And it's something others need from you. That formula, so to speak, is the perfect formula for job, business, etc., paid things, because others are paying you. And so once you align what you do and what you're compelled to do, what you have to do, what you just do it. People know this is what you do. And it shows, like we talked about a few episodes ago, that when that aligns with what other people's need, then you have what other people need, then that is the formula for flourishing. So ask yourself and someone else today, what's something you do that others always ask you for? What's something that you do that others always ask you for? I love this as an icebreaker because it's going to take a second. So give people a moment to think about it. This isn't one of those like necessarily instant icebreakers. Now, you know that I love to make sure that whatever pops to mind, like, so for example, the gardening thing, plant care, taking care of people's plants, that was like what popped to mind immediately, because that's something that people ask me for that I'm aware of. People ask me for other things too. And when you can come up with something that people ask you for that aligns with what you need, that's a very powerful thing. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time on Life's Potluck Buffet.